Hi, I'm Belinda Allen, and I'm going to show you today how to build a dashboard that compares your budget to your general ledger actual numbers. And we're going to do this using not only Excel, which you know is one of my favorite tools, but another one of my favorite tools for Microsoft Dynamics GP, and that's eOne's Excel Builder. We're looking at Microsoft Dynamics GP 2018, but you could do this with some older versions as well. So let's begin. The first thing we want to do is get our starting point. And fortunately for us, eOne has a lot of templates on their website that they let all of their customers use for free. So we're going to use one of those as our starting point. So under Smart List Builder, I've added it to my shortcut up here. I'm going to choose to import. And you could either go to the eOne website and download the files to import, or simply choose this tab called Import from Web, which is something I prefer to do. So I'm importing into Microsoft Dynamics GP, and I want to get the template that is part of the financial series. So if I look here, there are 3 templates that have the GL budget versus actual. One's for Smart List Builder, one's for Excel Report Builder, and one's for the Navigation List Builder. I'm going to choose the Excel Report Builder one and choose to import. We're going to use this import as our starting point for this report. So now I'm going to go into Smart List Builder, Excel Report Builder, and go to the Excel Report Builder. And when I do a lookup here, you can see there's only one out there, and it is the budget versus the actual. Let's start by publishing and see what's in the template, and then make a decision on what we wanted to do. So I'm going to just simply click on Publish. And now it's going to publish it with my other deployed Excel refreshable reports. So I'll simply go to the Financial Series, to Excel Reports, scroll down. Here it is, Budget versus Actual. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that, and let's see what is in there already. I'm going to enable the content, because the source where it's stored is perfectly safe for my machine. Scroll down a bit and you'll see there are numbers in those fields. What I'm looking at is the actual amount that was spent for this account number in this period in this fiscal year, and then the budget balance for that same fiscal period and year, and the variance between these two. So if I were to scroll down, I can see the actual number there, the budget, and the variance between those budgets. So as I'm looking at this, there's a couple of things that I could see I definitely would want to change. First of all, I'd like to be able to maybe build a pivot table where I can choose different segments of my chart of accounts. So I'd like to have 3 additional columns, one for each segment. We'd like to see the period name. You know how you could set up the fiscal period name? If my fiscal year is not a calendar year, period 1 is not going to be January, and it might be a little bit confusing for me. And then finally, I'd like to see the account category there that we set up in the account card. So those are some changes that I'd like to add, those 3 changes. So let's close this out. Let's open up the Excel Report Builder and open up that Excel Report Builder package that we've been working with. All right, so the first thing I mentioned is I'd like to be able to perhaps choose individual columns so I could use them as slicers for the segments of my chart of accounts. And here in the Budget Summary Master, I see my account segments are displaying right here. So what I'm going to do is just click on the first display name and change that to the name I want it to be. So that one will be Division. The second one will be Natural Account. And the third one will be Department. And then I'll simply click that I want to display those 3. That was easy enough. So now I have those 3 displayed. And if I click on Publish again and close that out, open up that file again, now you could see I've added in those 3 accounts and I have the new names listed there. That was easy enough. So now let's work on our other 2 changes. They're a little bit tougher. So one of the other changes we talked about was adding in the category name. So let me come in here and open up one of our GL account numbers. This is the category I'm referring to. So you can see cash listed right here. I'd like this name to appear. Now, if we were to look at the category setup, you could see where the name cash appears, the account category is a 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And if you add new ones, you see the asterisk, but there actually is a number that is being stored in your SQL database. So project sales, for example, would show up as number 49. So how can we get this description name? What we need to do is add this table to our list. So I'm going to come up to the Excel report builder again, and we're going to add that account category table here. So what I'm going to do is right here where it says tables, click on the plus sign to add a new GP table. So the product are all of the Dynamics GP dictionaries, and most of the ones you're going to want to add will be in the Dynamics GP one, the main dictionary. Now I'm going to select that one. The categories come from the financial series, so I'll leave that selected. And now I can select my table. And the account category maintenance table, or master table, is the table I want. So now what I need to do is link these together. And as you can see, the category number is listed in the budget summary. So all I have to do is say when the category number for budget summary matches the category number in the category master, then use the name in the master table. So I'm going to just add that link by clicking on the plus, and I could simply say when those two are the same, then I know that's the record that I want. So I'll save that, and now my account category master is listed here. So now I can choose to display that particular field. Now I only need the word category there because I know what that means. So we'll get rid of the word account and description. Now we've taken care of that element. Now it's time to add in one more. We want to add in the period name. Now let's go ahead and click on Save and open up our fiscal period window. And I want to take a look at this for just a moment. One of the things that you could see here is that for each year period combination, there are 6 different series here. And if we include the one that encompasses all of them, that would be 7. The way this table is set up, each year period combination is listed 7 times. And we only want to see it once, because when we create a link to say that those are the same, if we just say the year and the period are the same, then it's going to look like there's 7 lines of information. Then it's going to duplicate our budget 7 times. And we do not want that to happen. So we're going to link by year, by period, and then we're going to say, but only look at the financial series because that's where our budget's located. So let's do that now. So I'm going to go into the Excel report builder, open up that package again, and we're going to add in that fiscal period table. Now this time the table is going to be stored in the company series because that's where the fiscal period is set up. It affects all of the series. And now for the table, we're going to find the period setup. So we're going to put in those links for the year and the period like we just talked about. So we're going to say when the year is the same and when the period is the same. That's how we know which label to use. So I'm going to select period ID for both of these. Now what we want to do is go in, I'm going to save that, and tell it, but only look at the rows where the series is financial. So we're going to use this restriction option. This is a really cool thing that eOne has done. It enables us to be able to use links like this that normally would duplicate our data and narrow down what we're seeing. So what we're going to do is just click on the plus sign here and choose period setup. You'll notice that we're only seeing the tables and the calculated fields that are being stored in this package, not the entire list that exists in the GP spectrum. So now I'm going to choose period setup, and I'm going to come in and choose series, and I'm going to say only show me when the series is equal to, and here are 6 plus all, which makes 7, and I'm going to say when the period is financial, that's the only record I want to see. And now we're only going to have one line for each year period combination, and then that way we're not going to have duplicates of the rest of the information. I'll leave the period ID on the budget, but under fiscal period setup, I'm going to come in and choose period name. Let's just change that to fiscal period. Great. And now I'm going to click on Publish. Now we've created this really great Excel report using the Excel Report Builder. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that budget versus actual report that we've just built. We have two more columns, one that shows the account category and one that shows the fiscal period. And I think you saw in the fiscal period window in GP, I had two set up with actual names. So I had for the year 2027, I had January and I had February set up instead of fiscal period 1 and 2. So now I can see whatever I name my fiscal periods. And that's going to be very helpful to people I show the report who cannot automatically make the connection that period 1 is actually July. So it'll be a lot easier for them. Now I'm ready to create a really cool dashboard, and I'm going to do the rest of the work in Excel using a couple of Excel tools that you may not be familiar with. One of the things that eOne has done for me is it's placed all the data in an Excel table, which makes me super happy because tables make working with data a lot easier when you're in Excel. And I know it's a table because my cursor's clicked right in the middle here, and you'll notice up at the top I have table tools listed on my menu. So I could go into design and look at the table tools. That makes it a lot easier. Now, when you're dealing with a table, one of the things you could do to save yourself a lot of grief is to format the columns so that they will work the way you want them to work. For example, if I use the year, I don't want the year to show up as a number and then summarize. I wanted to know, hey, that's a text I use that actually represents a value, just like an account number represents a value. Another thing I want to point out is setting up graphs and charts can be very difficult without a pivot table. So I'm going to utilize the PowerPivot tool to make this a lot easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is just come down here and rename this to data from GP. So I know that this is the data dump from GP. And now what I'm going to do is come up to PowerPivot at the top, and in PowerPivot, I'm going to choose Add to the Data Model. If you're on Excel 2010 or older, you may have to download the PowerPivot to be able to do this. And what this is going to do is load all of that data into the Excel in-memory data model. And now I can do some additional things with this data. One of the things that I want to do is I want to format the columns so that they'll be set right. So the account variance, I'm just going to come up here. It's already set to a decimal, and I'm going to make it $1 for English. I'm going to do the same for the actual amount and the budget amount. So now I've ensured that those columns are going to react like numerical values. They're going to act like a currency value. Now, period ID, I'm going to go ahead and leave that set to a whole number because I might want to use that as a sorting option, and I would rather it sort by number. If I change that to text, 11 will come before 2, and I do not want that to happen. But the year and my chart of accounts, I do want those to be set as text. So right now this one's set to whole number. I'm going to change it to text. And then these three, they're all sequential. So I'm going to make sure that they're text. And now the rest of the information will be okay. And I could even add some additional calculations if I want to. And I could even use a little bit of DAX programming here if I want. Cool. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is come up to where it says Pivot Table, choose from that little down arrow, and I'm going to make 4 charts from this. And it'll create it on a new worksheet. And I'm going to rename this Sheet 1 to Worksheet. And you'll understand why I'm calling that worksheet instead of dashboard in just a few minutes. And now I have these 4 pivot charts, and I don't have to worry about having a pivot table associated with them. And now I can start populating them. So I'm going to start with the first one. I just selected it, and I have my handlebars around it. And I'm going to add in actual amount and the budget amount. So those are all both side by side. Now I could add in some other values as well. Let's add in the period ID. And so now that those are sorted. Cool, we've got that one done. And what I'm going to do is click on the second one. And let's do something a little bit different. We'll still use actual amount and we'll use budget amount. But this time, let's sort this one by our division. Great. Over here, this time, let's just use the variance. And let's set this one to the category. Then we're going to come over here. And this time we'll use actual amount and we'll use variance. So we've got both of those set up, and we'll do this one by department. Now, a couple of things about setting these up. Right now this looks a little bit clunky to me. I don't like seeing all of these individual labels here. So one of the things you can do when you have your handlebar on one, you get these pivot chart tools. And I'm going to come up to the Analyze one and click on the icon for filled buttons. And that will get rid of all of those additional buttons and perhaps make that a little bit easier to read. So now that I have that done, what I want to do is create another page. And we're going to call this one the dashboard. And let me move it to the front. This is where we're going to actually have our dashboard. So we might want to put in a name here, budget versus actual comparison. Let's format that as a title and then maybe make it a little bigger. That's good. And then let's put our logo on here as well. So I'm going to come in and insert a picture. There we go. So I've inserted the eOne logo. Make that a little bigger. Nice. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And now we're going to put our visualizations here, our charts. And we're not going to do it in the traditional way. One of the things I've done is I've added this camera icon to my menu. And you could do this by clicking on the drop-down list right there, the quick access, and clicking on more commands. Change it from popular commands to all commands. Find the camera, highlight it, and choose to add it. And what we're going to do is use the camera to take a snapshot of these visuals, because you notice that I could drag these around wherever I want, and I could easily make a mess if I'm not sure what I'm doing. But by using the camera, I could select a range of cells here. Now I could click on the camera icon and then come back and just click in a cell, and now I have one full moving part here that I can move around. Now one of the things you'll notice is it's showing the grid lines there. So if I come to this worksheet and I go to View and I take off the grid lines, now back over here there are no grid lines behind it. So that works pretty well. Let's come back to the worksheet where we're working on things here, and let's add in some slicers. So what I'm going to do now, under Analyze, I've selected one of them, so under the Pivot Chart Tools, Analyze, I'm going to choose to insert a slicer. And now I can select all the slicers that I want. So in this particular case, I want to choose my department and my division. I want to choose categories, and I want to choose budget IDs. So now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Here are my 4. So now I've organized my slicers, and I probably would want to use the align feature so that I can match them up and organize them. So now that I've got these done in an organized fashion, I'm going to highlight all of them and do a Control X for cut, and then paste them over here on this worksheet. Now all I need to do is make sure that they could work with the data on the previous tab. So I have them selected. I'm going to go to the slicer options, which is available, and the first thing I'm going to do is tell it to hide items with no data. And I'll click OK. So that way, if there's no data, I won't see an item. I'm going to highlight the first one, and then under the slicer tool options, under report connection, I'm going to tell it I want it to work with all 4 of these charts on the worksheet tab. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other 3. Great. Let's take the grid line off the back of this page too. So under View, I'll remove the grid lines. And now I have this dashboard. Now these slicers can be moved around, but this cannot. So again, this is one big full piece, and it's just a screenshot of whatever's on the previous worksheet. So if I click on Budget 4, for example, everything will update accordingly. If I want one of these to say what it actually is, then what I'm going to need to do is just come in and place a title. So for example, here I'm looking at Summary and Actual by Period. If I come into the worksheet over here, I could choose to add in a title. And when I go back to my dashboard, the title will automatically appear. I can come back to the worksheet and make other changes as well. For example, in this one, I'm going to take out the actual numbers and just leave the variance. And now I can see how the variance is working by department. So that could be very helpful. So I'm going to change that name from Total to Variance by Department. And now if I come over here, you could see that change is reflected as well. So any change I make on this side of the screen, I'm going to see it appear. So here you could see I have Summary and Actual by Division. I'm going to remove Division. And instead, I'm going to put in Budget ID, and I'm going to change the design of this one to be a line chart. So now when I get that done, go back to my dashboard. And if I remove the Budget ID from here, I could see changes being reflected by Budget ID of Actual versus Summary. So I could come in and then say, show me all of the sales accounts and how the budgets reflect there. But maybe I'm only interested in Budget 4, and I could look at just this department, for example. So this is an amazing combination. Excel and eOne Excel Builder. You could do all kinds of powerful things that are completely refreshable. One final word of caution I want to give you on being refreshable is if you use this combination of the Excel refreshable report that eOne has created for us in combination with PowerPivot, you do need to refresh twice. So you will need to go to your data and choose to refresh all twice. Once to refresh the data on this data from GP sheet, and once to refresh the PowerPivot. And as always, I hope this helps.